If I told you that there is a company that uses child labour, caused the deaths of babies due to fake baby formula, steals water from deserts and sells it to the same people, you might think that they are some sort of Nazi regime. But you'd be wrong. The infamous company we're talking about is Nestlé. They invest billions of dollars in advertising campaigns to creep deeper and deeper into your everyday life. They are literally everywhere, from bottled water to coffee, from baby formula to energy drinks. They are dominating every single shelf in a grocery store. Nestlé also loves turning a blind eye to the truly atrocious practices of its corporation against children. In today's video, we will take a deep look into how Nestlé conquered the food industry at the expense of the lives and health of millions of children. Make sure to stick till the end of this video, as we have a lot to cover. Let's dive right in. To better take into perspective the doings of this evil company, let's look at the Nestlé baby formula scandal of the 1970s. After World War II, many Western families with infants switched from breastfeeding to bottle feeding. The latter was regarded as being more refined, contemporary, and orderly. Science purportedly supported mothers who chose to bottle feed. Formulas produced by businesses like Nestlé, whose founder, pharmacist Henry Nestlé, invented baby formula in 1867, were packed with nutrients and made a great substitute for breast milk. Nestlé makes a variety of foods, including coffee and baby formula, though you probably associate the company primarily with chocolate. However, their strategy for marketing baby formula products demonstrated that the company had no boundaries when it came to taking advantage of actual infants. Nestlé started sending employees disguised as nurses to hospitals in underdeveloped nations in the 1970s, ostensibly to assist new mothers who were having trouble breastfeeding, but actually to promote the company's infant formula. While some of these milk nurses might have had the necessary educational background, the majority of them did not. They went door to door to inform people about their groundbreaking formula. Additionally, they spent time in maternity wards, where they gave mothers instructions on how to prepare Nestlé products as well as nutrition and feeding advice. Families were even given a free shiny can of baby formula to take home. Even though the whole disguise thing is pretty shady, breastfeeding can be challenging. So what harm can come from parents choosing to forgo the disguise and taking advantage of the free sample? The majority of the damage is caused by the unsafe water that must be used to prepare the formula and clean the bottles in these locations, and many of the newlyweds Nestlé targeted lacked access to boiling water facilities or weren't even aware that it was necessary. The fact that the can's instructions were written in English didn't help. Of course, there were local language advertisements promoting formula as the preferred method of infant feeding in each nation. Because the formula was costly as well, many families over-diluted it to extend its shelf life. The babies were so accustomed to the formula by that point that they would refuse to get breastfed, so it wasn't like they could simply switch back to breastfeeding. 1 million babies are thought to die each year as a result of malnutrition or illnesses brought on by contaminated water or bottles. Cost of the product became an issue once mothers were reliant on formula to feed their kids. As a result, many women started diluting the milk in order to extend its shelf life. This would significantly reduce the nutritional value of the formula by adding up to 3 times as much water as is advised. All of this resulted in significant boycotts in the late 1970s and early 1980s, which forced Nestlé to fire the fictitious nurses while maintaining that the real issue was access to clean water. Hey, did you know that they also sell bottled water? Strangely, they persisted in pushing for clean water to be deemed a need rather than a right at the 2000 World Water Forum despite this. The company has fought off allegations of unethical international marketing of their infant formula over the years, some of which are pretty indisputable. In 2017, 6 Nestlé employees were found guilty and sentenced to prison for extorting patient information from Chinese hospital staff in order to market their formula. A farmer and a dairy manager were, incidentally, executed after China discovered a formula manufacturing shortcut that killed even 6 babies, and in which Nestlé was also involved. Despite their issues, they are very concerned about food safety. There's a good chance that when people around the world eat a chocolate bar, they're also biting into delicious, tasty child slave labour, unless they're purchasing the fancy stuff with all those special seals. Of course, Nestlé is not the only chocolate producer that purchases its cocoa beans from dubious sources, but as the biggest food company in the world, It has a special obligation to make sure that it is not abusing children in West Africa who spend their days swinging machetes, spraying pesticides, and carrying loads up to 100 pounds for essentially no pay. In 2001, Nestlé vowed to phase out only the worst forms of child labour within 4 years, joining Mars and Hershey as the other two major players in the chocolate industry. However, each time that deadline is extended, they fall short of their commitment. They assert that it is simply impossible to identify the precise farms from which they source their products, which is strange because there appears to be no barrier preventing journalists from simply wandering onto arbitrary farms in West Africa, asking questions and receiving surprisingly honest responses. The Fair Labour Association adds that they absolutely could. According to the company, children who work on their parents' farms account for the majority of the unpaid child labour used in the production of chocolate. They say that because the farmers need as many hands as they can get to work in order to afford food, shelter, water, and other necessities while they're unable to pay for school. The logic is flawed though, because Nestlé is the one who pays them. So Nestlé needs to assist the farmers who work for them. They should help them and increase the payment they make to the farmers. After missing their initial deadline, a group of young children who had allegedly been trafficked from Mali to the Ivory Coast to work on cocoa plantations filed a lawsuit against them in 2005. The Supreme Court ultimately decided that international practices could not be subjected to American laws, which is why they dismissed the case. During the trial, Nestlé's attorneys argued that they couldn't be held accountable because even the manufacturers of the gas that the Nazis used to gas Jews in concentration camps weren't. You're wrong if you ever find yourself citing Nuremberg in support of yourself. Good food, good life is the mission statement of one of the world's leading nutrition, health and wellness multinationals, Nestlé SA. While browsing its website, it's easy to come across words and phrases like healthy, healthier lives, and healthier future, which could deceive a gullible customer into feeling secure. However, there's a catch. According to Australia's Health Star rating, more than 60% of Nestlé's products, excluding pet food and specialised medical nutrition, were unhealthy. According to a report from the British business newspaper Financial Times, this was the case. If a product receives 3.5 or more stars out of 5, it is considered to be healthy based on the amount of fat, salt and sugar it contains. Yet, its 100-gram Kit Kat chocolate wafer contains 49 grams of sugar, which is double the daily maximum advised amount, 25 grams, i.e. 5% of energy required in a day. Its Maggi masala has 3.7 grams of salt, which is more than the 75% daily recommended limit. In 2015, tests revealed that the company's well-known Maggi instant noodles contained extremely high levels of lead, sparking a national ban across India. After tests at 3 accredited laboratories revealed the lead content was within acceptable limits, the Bombay High Court overturned the ban. Not only are packaged goods unhealthy, Nestlé has already acknowledged that some of its foods will never be healthy, despite its best efforts to reformulate them. One can only speculate about the absurd amount of fat, salt and sugar in these products, for which even reformulation is ineffective. Let's also take the example of Milo, a very popular drink that is marketed to children as a healthy drink that gives you energy and makes you do better in sports. This is anything but the case. Did you know that Milo contains more sugar than the other ingredients like malt, cocoa and milk? There have been findings that Milo's glycemic index is the same as Coke. The glycemic index rates foods high in carbohydrates relative to one another based on how these foods affect blood sugar levels. With a glycemic index of 55 when Milo is dissolved in water, it can only be reduced by adding milk as opposed to just water. Other than sugar, there is an ingredient in Milo called maltodextrin. It's an ingredient with high glycemic index, which raises blood sugar levels quickly. It's a white powder made from wheat, rice, corn or potato starch that has a mild flavour and dissolves in water. The maltodextrin, which is made from GMO corn and may toxically affect several bodily organs and systems and may cause an allergic reaction or side effects, inhibits the growth of probiotics by inhibiting and altering the composition of the gut bacteria. It also has no nutritional value. Shortly after consuming foods containing maltodextrin, some people may experience a sudden rise in blood sugar or spike. For those who have diabetes and insulin resistance, blood glucose levels can be particularly dangerous. Milo won't fill you up much because of its high sugar content. Instead, it will only increase your appetite and encourage you to eat more. As a result, if you consume a lot of sugar, you will only end up gaining weight. Children are more sensitive to sugar than adults are, so we must monitor how much they consume each day. A diet high in sugar can increase the risk of many diseases and health problems for children, especially in their later years of life. Sugar is thought to be 8 times more addictive than drugs like cocaine. Sugary foods are nutritionally deficient and lead to weight gain, which frequently progresses to adult obesity, which can cause diabetes, fatty liver, joint pain, cardiovascular disease, and other conditions. Sugar consumption contributes to type 2 diabetes and may also raise insulin levels. Kidneys, eyes, and blood vessels in your child are also known to be harmed by diabetes. Although this condition is more common in adults, research indicates that it's becoming more prevalent in children, particularly as a result of obesity. Studies also show a negative impact on academic performance, learning, and memory. The multi-billion-dollar company Nestlé completely dominated every market that it ever entered. Despite engaging in a number of unethical and illegal activities, they have been able to get away with it because of their size, power, and influence on laws. The brand has a strong marketing strategy and the power to easily sway its target audience through advertisements that make audacious claims and promises, but reality is much worse than imagined. The business has earned the moniker the most evil company of all time because of this. What, in your opinion, was the most evil thing ever done by Nestlé? Make sure to let us know your thoughts down below, and thanks for watching.